the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation is holding an online event in celebration of the 92nd birthday anniversary of internationalist Ahmed Kathrada. The event will focus on Kathrada's activism before and after he was imprisoned. Let's take you there live now.
We also want to, on the occasion of remembering Kathy, pay tribute to all of those who have taken a stand against racism, against state capture and corruption in this country, and those were part of his core values that we try to take forward in whatever way possible. We have a wonderful program today that we hope all of you will stay with us for the duration of the next 2 hours or more to go through it. I want to, in advance, just thank many of the speakers who've come on board, to thank Anand Singh and Video Vision for the presentation that will kick off after the welcome by our board member Nhlanhla and Nkosi, as well as all of the speakers who have availed themselves here today. So on that note, let us kick off with just a word of welcome or words of welcome from our board member, Nhlanhla and Nkosi. Lucky, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bolton. When occasions like this come around, I think one of the biggest values is the fact that we now get a chance to reflect on our experiences with Uncle Kathy, but I think probably even more important, to reflect on the lessons that we have gotten from being around Uncle Kathy. And the title of this occasion, or this program itself, I think is very fitting, because while a lot of people would have seen this public figure, one of the things that absolutely blew me away by Uncle Kathy every single time I engaged with him was what a multi-dimensional character he was. He was human, he was a person, but I think above everything else, he always tried to live by his core values, and he stuck to them. In everything that he did, all of these core values that we now have tried to keep alive through this organization, he lived them every single day. They shone through in every single conversation he had, in every single activity that he attended, every single rally, every single march, even at protests. At his advanced age, Uncle Kathy was still going to protest for the things that he felt very strongly about. So I think today, as we discover more about this multidimensional life of Uncle Kathy, one of the things that I think we should all think about is what are the lessons that we need to be drawing from this. Without taking up any more of your time, on behalf of the Ahmed Kathrada board, of the foundation's board rather, I'd like to welcome and thank you, all of you, for joining today. And I really think that after today, we'll all be able to get a much deeper understanding of what an incredible character Uncle Kathy was. Thank you.
Thanks, Lucky. Thank you so much. One of the 5 new young board members that have come on board to ensure that this foundation is transferred to a set of younger board members in the years to come, will continue this legacy work. To introduce the next presentation, I want to call Anand Singh, somebody that I think Kathy would have seen as his son. Anand provided valuable friendship, camaraderie, and support to Kathy right up until the end. And in particular, Kathy's last visit to Budapest, Barbara was saying to me yesterday, is something that will stick with her. And I'm sure it is something that he remembered up until the end. Anand, thank you so much for doing that interview. We had no sense of what it would be used for at the time, but today we will play short excerpts from it. And thanks to you and Video Vision for the presentation. Over to you to introduce it, and then Zinzi, let us play the presentation as soon as Anand is done. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. It's greetings from early morning in New York, and I'm very honored and thrilled to be with you today. For me, it's a very special day because I've spent many birthdays with Kathy from the time he was released, not only in South Africa, but many countries in the world. And he and I built a friendship, and even when I walk here in New York, and when he was in New York, we were here together. I can tell you many stories, many funny stories about whether it's ice cream or he didn't have a winter coat, and it was the middle of winter in New York, and we made jokes about things all through our lives until he left us. But Kathy, as you will hear and have heard already, was a very special individual. And I think all of us were so fortunate to have him in our lives and be a part of our lives. Also, as we are taking on his birthday and dealing with the values that Kathy represented, South Africa is in a sensitive stage. And I think that his ability to be totally open with all his colleagues, with adversaries, and be able to engage even with Madiba when he challenged Madiba as a young youth leader, and that's how that friendship began. And I've been witness to that relationship. So I think obviously we need leaders like Kathy. And I think the legacy of Kathy is what we have, and we must look to perpetuate and develop the young leaders that you are already doing at the foundation. As a filmmaker, I was probably for the last 5 years before his death bugging him to do a one-on-one interview that I would conduct because I was going to ask him very probing questions, and he was kind of reluctant in the beginning, and then finally in 2015 he was he was coming to Durban, and he said to me, "Okay, well, on this trip he stayed with me, and he said I'll do the interview." And I was very pleased. And what you're going to see is just segments of that interview, which is, I don't think it's been seen by anyone before. So I think it's very fitting to have it presented today on his birthday celebration. And I'm very happy to see that Barbara is on with us. And Barbara, I think a special acknowledgement to you for the role that you have played in making Kathy's life so enjoyable, especially in the latter years. So thank you all. The video can speak for itself. I think he didn't dodge any questions like we see many politicians do. He was very open.